Many people are told that muscle loss after 60 is inevitable, that weakness, fatigue, and shrinking strength are simply part of aging, but the body tells a very different story. Sarcopenia, the gradual loss of muscle mass and strength, is not caused by age alone. It is largely the result of nutritional deficiency, poor absorption, and lack of proper rebuilding signals. The body does not stop wanting to be strong, it stops receiving what it needs to stay strong. Muscle is not just for movement. Muscle is a metabolic organ. It controls blood sugar, supports joints, protects bones, and determines balance and independence. When muscle begins to waste away, the body becomes fragile, not because it is old, but because it is undernourished. And while bone broth has long been praised for joint and connective tissue support, there is one food that speaks directly to muscle rebuilding in a powerful way. Muscle does not disappear because the calendar turns. It disappears because the body is slowly starved of what it needs to maintain it. And this truth is far more confronting than the idea of normal aging. Research shows that after the age of 40, muscle mass can decline by up to 1% per year. But studies also reveal that this loss accelerates dramatically in people with poor protein intake, mineral deficiencies, low vitamin D, and impaired digestion. In other words, the body does not lose muscle because it grows old, it loses muscle because it grows undernourished. Sarcopenia is not a mysterious disease of age, it is a silent consequence of unmet biological needs. Muscle is one of the most expensive tissues in the body to maintain. It requires constant repair, steady protein supply, strong nerve signals, and adequate energy. When nutrients become scarce or poorly absorbed, the body makes a ruthless but intelligent decision. It begins breaking down muscle tissue to recycle amino acids for vital organs like the heart, liver, and brain. This process can begin years before weakness is felt. Long before someone struggles to climb stairs or rise from a chair, muscle fibers are already thinning, shrinking, and losing strength at the cellular level. Scientific studies confirm that many older adults consume far less protein than their bodies require, even when they believe they are eating enough. But the problem goes deeper than intake alone. With age, stomach acid often declines, making protein harder to digest and absorb. This means someone can eat protein daily and still be functionally deficient. Research has shown that low stomach acid reduces absorption of amino acids, iron, calcium, and magnesium, all critical for muscle function. The body is fed, but the cells are starving. This is where the concept of anabolic resistance becomes critical. As we age, muscle cells become less responsive to protein. They require stronger, clearer nutritional signals to activate repair. Studies show that older adults need higher quality, more bioavailable protein to stimulate muscle protein synthesis compared to younger individuals. Without this signal, muscle building pathways remain silent. Exercise alone cannot overcome this resistance. Without nutrition, movement simply accelerates breakdown. Vitamin and mineral deficiencies quietly accelerate the process. Low vitamin D levels, now widespread globally, are strongly associated with muscle weakness, slower reaction time, and increased fall risk. Vitamin D receptors are present directly in muscle cells, meaning deficiency weakens muscle from the inside out. Magnesium deficiency impairs muscle contraction and relaxation, leading to fatigue and cramps. Zinc deficiency interferes with tissue repair. Selenium deficiency increases oxidative stress, damaging muscle fibers. None of these deficiencies cause immediate pain, which is why they are so dangerous. Damage occurs silently. Blood sugar imbalance plays another hidden role. Muscle tissue is a major regulator of glucose. When muscle mass declines, insulin resistance increases, leading to higher blood sugar levels. Elevated blood sugar accelerates muscle breakdown through inflammatory pathways and oxidative stress. This creates a vicious cycle where muscle loss worsens metabolic health, and poor metabolic health accelerates muscle loss. Studies show that people with lower muscle mass have significantly higher risks of frailty, disability, and early mortality, independent of age. What is rarely discussed is how quickly this process can begin to reverse when nutritional deficiencies are addressed. Research demonstrates that muscle tissue retains its ability to respond well into old age. Even individuals in their 70s and 80s show significant improvements in muscle strength and size when given adequate protein, vitamin D, and mineral support. This is not theory. It has been repeatedly documented in controlled trials. The machinery for rebuilding never disappears, it simply waits. The idea that muscle loss is inevitable is one of the most damaging myths in modern health. It discourages action and normalizes decline. In reality, sarcopenia is a warning signal. It tells us that the body is no longer receiving enough building material to justify maintaining strength. The body does not betray us, it adapts to scarcity. When scarcity is removed, adaptation reverses. Perhaps the most shocking fact is that muscle loss often precedes loss of independence by many years. Weakness does not appear suddenly, it creeps in quietly, first as fatigue, then slower walking, then instability. By the time falls occur, muscle reserves are already critically low. Studies show that reduced leg strength is one of the strongest predictors of mortality in older adults, stronger than body weight or even blood pressure. Muscle is not cosmetic, it is survival. And yet, muscle is also one of the most responsive tissues in the body. When the right nutrients are consistently supplied, muscle cells reawaken, protein synthesis increases, nerve signaling improves, mitochondria produce more energy, strength returns gradually but reliably. This response is not limited by age, it is limited by nourishment. The tragedy of sarcopenia is not that it exists, but that it is so often accepted without question. Muscle loss is not the body failing, it is the body adapting to chronic deficiency. When that deficiency is corrected, the body responds with resilience that surprises even modern science. Aging does not steal muscle, neglect does. And the moment the body senses that nourishment is sufficient again, it stops breaking itself down and starts rebuilding, not because it is young, but because it is alive and designed to survive. Eggs have been quietly misunderstood for decades, yet science continues to reveal a truth that is both simple and profound. Few foods speak to human muscle tissue as directly, clearly, and effectively as the humble egg. When muscle begins to fade with age, the problem is not a lack of effort or movement, but a failure of communication at the cellular level. Muscles do not rebuild just because we want them to. They rebuild when they receive a biochemical signal strong enough to justify the cost. Eggs deliver that signal. Muscle tissue is built from protein, but not all protein is equal. Research shows that muscle protein synthesis depends not just on the amount of protein consumed, but on the presence of specific amino acids, especially leucine. Leucine acts like an ignition key. Without it, the engine of muscle repair never turns over. Eggs are one of the richest natural sources of leucine in a form the human body recognizes instantly. Studies have shown that leucine-rich proteins stimulate muscle growth pathways far more effectively than lower quality or poorly absorbed protein sources, especially in older adults. As we age, the body develops what scientists call anabolic resistance. This means muscle cells become less responsive to protein signals. In younger people, a small amount of protein can trigger repair. In older adults, the same amount does almost nothing. This is why simply eating a bit more often fails. The signal is too weak. Eggs cut through this resistance. Their amino acid profile closely mirrors human muscle tissue, allowing for rapid uptake and minimal waste. The body does not need to convert or struggle. It recognizes the message immediately. What makes this even more remarkable is how efficiently eggs are absorbed. Research comparing whole eggs to egg whites and plant proteins has shown that whole eggs stimulate muscle protein synthesis more effectively, even when protein content is matched. This tells us something critical. Nutrients work in synergy. The fats, vitamins, and amino acids in the yolk amplify the signal. Muscle does not respond to isolated parts, it responds to completeness. Vitamin D is one of the most overlooked components of muscle strength, and eggs are one of the few natural food sources that contain it. Vitamin D receptors are embedded directly in muscle cells. When vitamin D levels are low, muscle contraction weakens, balance deteriorates, and fall risk increases. Studies have consistently shown that low vitamin D status is associated with reduced muscle strength and slower reaction times, independent of age. Eggs provide vitamin D in a form the body can actually use, especially when eaten with the natural fats found in the yolk. Then there is choline, a nutrient many people have never heard of, yet one that plays a critical role in muscle function. Choline supports the production of acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter responsible for sending signals from nerves to muscles. Without strong nerve signals, muscles cannot contract efficiently. no matter how much protein is present. Research has linked low choline intake to muscle damage and impaired muscle control. Eggs are one of the richest dietary sources of choline available, making them uniquely supportive of both muscle tissue and the nervous system that controls it. Inflammation is another silent barrier to muscle rebuilding. Chronic low-grade inflammation increases with age and directly interferes with muscle repair pathways. Egg yolks contain antioxidants and healthy fats that help modulate inflammation rather than fuel it. Contrary to outdated myths, studies have shown that eggs do not increase inflammatory markers in healthy individuals and may actually improve lipid profiles when consumed as part of a whole food diet. When inflammation calms, muscle cells regain sensitivity to growth signals. One of the most shocking findings in modern nutrition science is how often muscle loss persists, not because people lack protein, but because they cannot digest it. Aging is associated with reduced stomach acid production, which impairs protein breakdown. Protein powders, bars, and heavily processed foods often pass through partially undigested, providing calories without usable amino acids. Eggs, especially when softly cooked, are among the most digestible proteins known. Studies show that egg protein has a biological value close to 100, meaning nearly all of it can be used by the body. Preparation matters. Overcooking eggs damages delicate proteins and oxidizes fats, reducing their effectiveness. Soft-boiled, poached, or gently cooked eggs preserve nutrient integrity and improve absorption. This is not about culinary preference. It is about biological efficiency. The body responds not to labels, but to structure. Eggs also influence hormones that regulate muscle. Insulin, often misunderstood, is a powerful anabolic hormone. When paired with protein, it helps shuttle amino acids into muscle cells. Eggs provide a balanced nutrient package that supports stable blood sugar responses rather than spikes and crashes. Stable insulin signaling supports muscle repair instead of fat storage. Growth hormone and testosterone, both critical for muscle maintenance, also depend on adequate dietary fat and cholesterol, nutrients naturally present in eggs. What surprises many people is how quickly the internal response begins. Muscle strength does not return overnight, but metabolic changes occur within days. Nitrogen balance improves, protein breakdown slows, muscle protein synthesis increases. Over weeks and months, this translates into improved strength, stability, and confidence in movement. Clinical studies show that older adults consuming high-quality protein sources like eggs experience greater improvements in muscle mass and strength compared to those relying on lower-quality sources, even when calorie intake is the same. Perhaps the most powerful truth is this: eggs do not force the body to rebuild muscle. They simply remind it how. The body has not forgotten the blueprint for strength. It has been waiting for a signal strong enough to justify the cost of rebuilding. Eggs provide that signal clearly, efficiently, and consistently. Muscle loss is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of unmet needs. When those needs are met with the right information in the form of food, the body responds with resilience that defies expectations. Eggs are not a miracle. They are a message, and when that message is received, muscle listens. Strength does not return through effort alone, and it does not return through food alone. It returns when the body receives two messages at the same time: that it is needed and that it is supported. This is the missing link in most conversations about aging and weakness. Muscles are not stubborn. They are responsive. They listen constantly for signals that justify their existence. Gentle movement sends the signal of necessity. Consistent nourishment sends the signal of safety. When both arrive together, the body responds with rebuilding, even decades later. Research shows that muscle tissue is extraordinarily adaptable. Studies involving adults in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s demonstrate measurable improvements in muscle strength and size when light resistance or regular movement is paired with adequate nutrition. This directly challenges the myth that the aging body is fragile and incapable of change. In reality, inactivity is what makes it fragile. Muscles follow a simple rule: use it and feed it, or lose it. Movement does not need to be intense to be effective. In fact, aggressive exercise without proper nourishment can accelerate muscle breakdown, especially in older adults. Gentle, consistent movement, walking, standing from a chair, light resistance, balance work, activates muscle fibers without overwhelming them. This activation sends a molecular signal that tells muscle cells they are required. Scientists call this mechanotransduction, the process by which physical movement is translated into cellular communication. Without this signal, even the best nutrition struggles to reach its target. At the same time, nutrition without movement sends an incomplete message. The body is economical. It does not build what it does not need. Protein consumed without movement may be diverted to energy or stored as fat rather than used to rebuild muscle. Studies show that muscle protein synthesis increases dramatically when protein intake is paired with even light resistance activity. This synergy is not optional. It is how the body is designed to function. One of the most shocking findings in aging research is how little movement is required to maintain muscle signaling. Short, frequent bouts of activity are often more effective than occasional intense sessions. 10 minutes of walking several times a day, repeated sit-to-stand movements, or gentle resistance exercises can maintain muscle activation pathways. The body responds to consistency, not intensity. This is why people who remain lightly active throughout life often retain strength and independence far longer than those who attempt to exercise sporadically. Nourishment provides the materials to answer the call of movement. Protein supplies amino acids for repair. Minerals support contraction and relaxation. Healthy fats stabilize hormones. Vitamins regulate energy production. When these elements are consistently present, muscle cells shift from a defensive state into a rebuilding state. Research shows that muscle protein synthesis peaks when nutrients are supplied regularly rather than sporadically. Skipping meals, undereating, or relying on low nutrient calories disrupts this rhythm and keeps muscles in a state of conservation. Blood flow plays a crucial role in this partnership. Movement increases circulation, delivering oxygen and nutrients to muscle tissue. Nutrition ensures that what arrives is useful. Without circulation, nutrients cannot reach the cells that need them. Without nutrients, increased circulation delivers nothing of value. This is why movement and nourishment are inseparable. Together they create an internal environment where healing becomes possible. Hormones respond powerfully to this combination. Insulin sensitivity improves with movement, allowing amino acids to enter muscle cells more efficiently. Growth hormone release is stimulated by physical activity, supporting tissue repair. Cortisol, the stress hormone that accelerates muscle breakdown, is reduced when the body feels both active and nourished. Studies show that older adults who combine adequate protein intake with regular movement experience improved hormonal profiles that favor muscle maintenance rather than loss. The nervous system is also retrained through this process. Movement strengthens the connection between brain and muscle, improving coordination and reaction time. Nutrition supports nerve health, myelin integrity, and neurotransmitter production. Weakness is often neurological before it is muscular. When nerve signaling improves, muscles respond more fully to each movement. This is why balance, confidence, and stability often improve before visible muscle size increases. Time is often misunderstood as the enemy, but it is actually the ally of consistency. Muscle growth is slow, but adaptation begins immediately. Within days, the body reduces muscle breakdown. Within weeks, strength improves. Within months, visible changes appear. Studies consistently show that people who stick with gentle movement and consistent nourishment experience steady gains, while those who chase rapid results often burn out or injure themselves. The body trusts patience. One of the most overlooked benefits of this approach is its impact on independence. Muscle strength determines the ability to stand, walk, carry, and recover from imbalance. Research has shown that leg strength is one of the strongest predictors of longevity, even more predictive than body weight or cholesterol levels. Strength is not about appearance, it is about survival, and survival improves when the body is supported rather than pushed. Perhaps the most emotional truth is this: the body wants to be strong. Weakness is not a preference, it is a compromise. When nourishment is inconsistent and movement is absent, the body adapts by letting go of muscle. When both return, the body responds with gratitude, rebuilding what it once sacrificed. This response is not limited by age, it is limited by input. The tragedy is not that people grow weaker with time. The tragedy is that they are told this weakness is inevitable, and so they stop listening to the body's signals. Strength fades quietly when it is ignored. It returns quietly when it is supported. No dramatic intervention is required, only alignment. Gentle movement tells the body, you are needed. Consistent nourishment tells it, you are safe. When these messages arrive together, muscle does not hesitate. It rebuilds, not to impress, but to serve. And in that rebuilding, the body reclaims something far more valuable than strength alone. It reclaims confidence, stability, and the quiet assurance that it is still capable of adapting, growing, and living fully.